how to live with it. How are you going to support the child so they become adults? When they become adults, then they can even help themselves. So that it doesn't have to like affect them into adulthood. And it's not caused because the child is not, or their parents are not reading to the child. So I mean, we are currently where parents are doing a lot of reading before bedtime. I mean, it's part of the routine. But if you are a parent who is reading to your child, it shows. And if you are not reading to your child, it shows. Not necessarily caused by this, but then it shows the difference between a child who is being read to and a child who is not being read to. And then it is not seeing letters backward, like you said, and it's not rare. Like I said, it's one of the very common learning disabilities, and it doesn't have to do with intelligence, because probably you have a child in there who is very good when you give them activity that has to engage their mental capacities. Very creative. Give them a sheet of paper and they're putting something, a craft, an art, but then give them something to read, and then they're running away from that. So it doesn't have to do with intelligence, because it will interest you to know that a lot of dyslexics are the ones doing well in the creative world, because they are thinking out of the box completely. So it has to do with reading, but not to do with their intelligence. And then we come to what actually causes it. What causes it? Now, and I said before, it has to do with genes. So family history. Maybe my grandma had dyslexia, but then 60, 70 years ago, who was telling them about dyslexia? I mean, just go to school, help yourself, and then blah, blah, blah. But today, there's a lot of information out here, and then we know about dyslexia, and then a child is struggling. What you will have to do is that tell the parent that, okay, we would have to assess you as a parent on an adult scale. If you're able to assess you on an adult scale, we know that, okay, you actually have dyslexia, so then you have to show some grace to your child so that he or she can also be helped. And then it has to do with structural brain differences. Like I said, if you go online today, you see the differences between the typical brain and then a dyslexic brain. And then, like I said, phonological processes, having to put the individual sounds together, manipulate them. So when I say manipulate the individual sounds, if we put here, if we delete and then we put in s, we are manipulating it. If I take out the end sound and then I put in ho, if I take out the middle and I change the vowel to e, this is how we are manipulating. And this is how we are going to help the children build strong phonological skills and then subsequently lead to fluency, and then it's going to like go into their reading comprehension. And that is really where you want to see them read very well. And then brain injury. So sometimes you don't have dyslexia. I mean, you're a typical child growing, and then probably there's an accident. And then the accident happened to affect your brain, or there's stroke, or there's dementia. So now some part of your brain that is responsible for reading gets affected. So yours is called the acquired dyslexia. It's not developmental, but you acquired it because there was a stroke, there's a stroke, brain injury, or dementia. And then we're looking at signs. What signs would you see to say that, okay, this child is showing signs of dyslexia? Again, they are not going to diagnose the child, they are going to look at the risk factors. Now, even with these risk factors, there are three keywords here. It has to be a combination of the risk factors, maximum 6 of the risk factors. It has to be that it is recurrent. You are helping the child, but then the problem is still recurrent. And then it has to be persistent over time. Over a period of 6 months, you are helping, I'm not saying different, and it's still persistent. So I don't only see a child having problems with brains and I'll say, you have dyslexia. It has to be a combination of the risk factors. It has to be that it is recurrent despite the corrections you are doing, and it has to be that it is persistent over time. Those 3 ways. Now, if the child is in preschool or kindergarten, or maybe like 10, 6 months, at least you should be saying that mama, but then your child is still baby talking at around 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, they are still baby talking, speech delayed, it could be a risk factor for child to have a learning disability. And then now they are learning the nursery rhymes. They are learning um, Old MacDonald and all the Miss Rachel songs, and then they still can identify that okay, they still can't get the pattern of the rhymes. Or maybe let's say they are singing fox, 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 go into the box. Now it's rhyming towards the end. But a child with dyslexia will still have a problem knowing that like this has to do with rhyming towards the end. And then they are still teaching letter sounds, letter names, shapes, colors. I mean, they are teaching them in a more like fun way. And then for this child, you have to do it over and over and over before the idea sets in with them. And then they're not associating the letter sounds to the letter names. So we said the letter sounds are called the phonemes. And then the letter names are the graphics. So if the child is lacking the grapheme phoneme correspondence, so there is no relationship, they're not able to know that okay, so A is what says B is what sounds as B. So there is no grapheme phoneme correspondence for the child. And then they are not able to follow sequence of instructions. So you enter here and you say, everyone put your bags away, go pick your storybook, step out, get a chair, and start reading at page 22. And the child feels like you said so many things at a time. Which one am I supposed to go with? So for them, it has to be one instruction after the other. One instruction after the other. And then they lack organization. So you have bought pencils and sharpeners and erasers 1,000 times because anytime it goes, it doesn't come. They don't have organization, like with time management, they can't organize their personal stuff is an issue for them. And then issues of before and after, yesterday and today, right or left, it takes them a lot of effort to be able to understand that. Are you okay with this? Okay. And then we come to primary school, which I think this is where most of your people are. I have a lot of kids here. Now, if a child has auditory confusions, look at the letter sounds B and D. Sometimes, even if you are talking to someone and you say B, you have to tell the person B as in boy. But the person might be, are you saying D or you're saying B? So you have to actually say that for the adults to know. So children with dyslexia have this auditory confusion between the phonemes. So B can be perceived as D or P. And then sometimes with the visual confusion, now you notice, okay, if you have kids here who have, there's a confusion between visual confusion between B and then D. B and then D. So the child is supposed to write bed, they might end up writing Deb for you. So they've swapped the letter sound because they're having problems with B and D. And then there's also struggles with P and then K, because for them you have just changed the positions of the letters. And then for up and down is N and U, like we just said it, and then M and W, and then F and T. So they are going to have a lot of confusions working with these letters because of the similar from right to left or top to down.
So are these with pronouncing the words or just also in writing?
It can be with writing. It actually happens a lot in writing. When you have a child with dyslexia and you pick a book, maybe in a typical classroom where the madam writes the note and are supposed to copy, when you have a chance to see a typical child with dyslexia's book, you notice that both you have to circle a lot of them. I don't know, the very classic movie would be like Stars on Earth, and then you see how the teachers just kept circling in his book. Even 7 was F. They just kept circling, everybody was just circling their bit without really doing what with the part. So if you pick a typical child's book, it has to do with writing as well.
So one thing that we do here is we give every child who comes to our library to read a book. So all these books
Mm-hmm.
belong to children.
Okay.
Their names are on it.
Okay.
And they write words they don't understand.
Okay.
Words they need explanation on in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a number of them like that, where
Yeah.
letters have been displaced and all that. Does that mean they have to say, so I still have to follow the 6 different signs? If you see under the other.
Oh no. So like I said, it just have it the way you want.
Oh,
But this one we probably when we put in an intervention over intervention be fine. Unless, like we said, a combination of other one in addition to that. It is recurrent despite you putting in the correction, and then it is persistent over a long period of time. And then very slow. And then here they are doing addition of letters, syllables. So maybe I write the word mapping, but then I'm giving snapping or snacking, totally different. Maybe sometimes they even omit some of the letters in there and writing their own things. And then they're very slow at writing because it's a whole lot of work. I now have to look up, get the word into my brain, get into my book, now put it what I've seen into writing. So they end up taking a longer period of time to write. And then ignoring punctuations. We're just writing. No comma, no full stop, no question mark. We're just going like that. And again, it is not intentional. It has to do with the brain is processing what they are working with. And then spending an unusual long time completing tasks that has to do with reading and writing. And then very slow, awkward reading. Because again, you have to now decode. When I say decode, it means being able to mention the letter sound to read. And then inconsistent orthography. So like you said, you talked about the writing. Now inconsistent orthography is that maybe we know this word to be cake. Okay. That's a conventional spelling for cake. Everybody knows how cake is spelling. Now when we look at inconsistent orthography, maybe cake came into the paragraph like 4 times. But for every time the guy or the child spells cake, it is spelled differently. So cake is spelled differently in paragraph 1 or in line 1. In line 3, cake is spelled differently by the same child. In line 4, cake, but different spelling again. And that's what we talk about, inconsistent orthography. And they don't even notice that they are giving wrong spelling to the same word at different points. So that's what you notice when you have kids at primary having signs of dyslexia. And then this. Does this make a lot of sense to understand the struggles?
it looks like our projector. So when you touch it now, it's going to switch, puts you upside down.
Yes. See? You're supposed to understand that this is chair, this is still chair, this again is still chair, and this is chair. But then this is supposed to tell me that this is book, this is the, this is book, and this is book.
They see the same thing.
They will see the same thing. But then I am here telling them that no, this is book, this is. So that's why it has to take a lot of structured learning for them to be able to tell the difference. So even for the book and the, we have something called the bed rule. So here is the book because the here before the circle, and then here the circle comes before the. So that's how. And then you put in an E there, and then usually you stretch to draw a bed for them to know that this is how it works. Or you can use your lips to tell them that for the book, there's a line book. So your lips are closed, so the line first before the stroke, the curve out, and for the drip, the mouth is open to a curved out before a drip. Now we've talked about, before we talk about reading, we had to talk about understanding what it is. But like because you work with them, this is actually where They are going to need, what are you going to use to support them? How are you going to support them if you have children like that? That's why I talk about the structured literacy. And we are using the science of reading approach now. Now it is one of the very famous, if you hear structured reading, it is one of the most effective ones to help children because you move from one level, it is systematic. It's not just haphazard. Okay, today you've come, we've learned BCD, tomorrow we'll start with ABC. It is systematic. You move from one level for next, the next move to blending, you move to 3-letter words and 3-letter sounds, and then like that. So the child is able to get what he needs to. Now, is this clear enough? I'm sure you can see it, right? Now, for the elements, phonology, like I said before, it has to do with the letter sounds. How to manipulate them. They're going to be deleting some sound, they're going to be adding, they're going to be substituting, they're going to be changing the vowels in the middles. So this is how you're going to break. And then, like I said, the grapheme phoneme correspondence, the sound symbol association. That's how it works. And then for the syllables, when I pick a word like elephant, there's 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 fant syllables. And then the morphology, that's the structure. And then the syntax. And you're going to look at the phonemic awareness. I mean, we do a lot of writing when we get to phonemic awareness. And then that becomes the alphabetic principle, then the syntax vocabulary. And in the long run, come to comprehension. Because that is where everything you have learned will be most effectively used. And then that is going to, in the end, give us fluency that we want. But to do this, I mean, we all know Jolly Phonics. At least if you don't know, you've heard about it. But another very effective approach we have now is the Elting-Billingham approach. This is now the one of the most accepted, or I mean, widely used approach to help children with reading difficulties, and it has been proven to help children with dyslexia. But then, I mean, if a child with dyslexia can use Elting-Billingham to learn how to read easily, then a typical child should be able to like just run through easily when they are being taught how to work around that. Now, it's individualized. So like I said, you would have a lot of kids in your class, or you have a lot of kids here at the community center. But then every child is different. And even if we have diagnosis saying this child has dyslexia or that child has dyslexia, no two children with dyslexia are the same. Because one person can be having issues with decoding, and then another person will be having issues with comprehension or fluency. So no two children, even with the same dyslexia, are the same. So it's individualized. And then multisensory. I don't just come and stand here and then I am just, today we are doing ABC, so just read and then pick up a book. Multisensory, we are going to involve vision, I see, tactile, I touch and feel, kinesthetic, I move, and then what's the last one? Auditory, I hear. So you're going to involve all the senses so that if the child is probably a visual learner, it's captured. If it's a kinesthetic learner, it is captured. If they are auditory learners, it is captured. If they are tactile learners, it is captured. So that everyone in the class is sorted to a large extent. And then again, phonological awareness, we'll talk about that in details. And then like I said, it is structured and sequential. So we move from phonics, then we come to blending 2-letter sounds, then we come to CVC words, and then we move to consonant or silent E and all that. Now, to the multi-sensory, most important one. Now if you have, I don't know, do you have an age that you see at, like what age do you accept? From what age do you accept to?
From 6.
From 6. From 6, that should be like grade 1.
Grade 1.
Grade 1. And then to what level?
to
GHS.
yes, Jesus. It's like 14.
Okay. Because what do you make so far of it? Have I confused your confusion, or things are becoming a bit clearer now?
Yeah.
Becoming clearer. Okay. Is there something that you have learned so far that you are not too familiar with? Right, like you're already familiar with a lot of the things that have been discussed. Maybe there's something you have learned so far and you're
Yes.
not too familiar with.
Yes.
Okay. So when I say we should do a quick metacognitive summary right now, you tell me something. Okay, a quick one. How has it been so far? What have you picked so far?
So I think that the myth surrounding dyslexia is is not entirely wrong in the sense that the the understanding that it's children seeing words or letters turned upside down is not entirely wrong. Sometimes with what I've seen with the uh, visual confusion, it's the same understanding, just that it's
Linked to the
yeah,
brain.
it's limited to just that. But the general view would be a linkage of all the other signs before you could see that it is dyslexia.
David, how has it been so far?
Yes. So I've learned that some of the causes of dyslexia can be hereditary. Yes, and also uh, the differences in the brain, yeah, the structure of the brain. Yes, and also it deals with the phenological processing of the brain.
Chronological. Okay. Because yeah, how far? How has it been? How have you what have you understood so far with everything dyslexia before we look at how are you going to support them when you have them in here? How has it been? What do you take?
So the first thing is to identify the signs. So some of the signs are delay speech. The child can take multiple instructions at the same time. The child is not organized. So when you identify some of these signs, it will help you to know whether your child has a learning disability or not. So some of these signs also help you to know whether it just needs an intervention or a medical support.
And and someone dyslexia. You have to go over and over and over. You have to go over and over again for them to understand. So one instruction after another. So now, let's look at the multi-sensory. Like I said, it is teaching, but it is not just the child sitting behind their table and then being told what to do. But in here, I'm going to make sure that it is hands-on. The child will get involved. So that's why you would see that in the Montessori class, they have something like a sand tray. So probably it's just sand. If it's not sand tray, at home now I have colored gari. So I just bought gari and then I use food color to color them red, yellow, green. And you can use salt, you can use sugar, you can use rice. No, not expensive one, but if you have rice. So these are the sensory things, such that if you say to build the phoneme letter correspondence, the child uses index and then index and middle finger to trace in between the letters, in between the sand, rice, whatever. Now, what that does is that these are fingerprints. They're going to pick senses. Now, the movement is going to give one. The brain picks the letter formation. So I know a stroke like this, and then upside down again. When I'm writing book, it's a stroke and a curve out. My mind is having a mental imprint of the letter formation and then what it is like to associate the letter sound to the letter. At least when the child goes home, they know that okay, there's something other than just sitting behind and just told that this is bo. No bo as bo. And then if they are going to look at auditory, maybe I bring, if you are doing bo, I bring small toys of a boy, balloon, ball. They've seen what it is like. So both as in boy, both as in balloon, both as in ball. They've seen it visual. Tactile, they've used their hand to trace both in the letter sound. Montessori classrooms have the sandpaper letters. So they are cards and then they have used something very rough just so that your senses will pick them. And then kinesthetic. When you are doing b, b, your lips. When you're saying okay, bye, okay, bye, J. Bye. And then for the kinesthetic. Now, if you're saying a letter sound like this is oral kinesthetic because is going to move somewhere in your throat. You're going to feel some vibration in your throat when you're saying So, oral kinesthetic, if I say there's a way my lips is moving or is making. If I'm saying and if I want them to feel kinesthetic, I mean, in terms of movement, we'll just draw hopscotch, that game, and then we draw the letter sounds that we are focusing on in each box. So that when I say the child jumps into the letter in that letter sound. When I switch to they're just jumping in between. So we are not sitting. If by this time you are done, your child won, you have had fun, but then it is through this fun that the learning is going to take place than just sitting behind their table and just being taught. So if you do something like that, visual, you've brought the items, auditory, they've heard it, kinesthetic, they have actually moved their bodies, their lips and all that. Tactile, they've had their sanctuary and all that. That is a complete multi-sensory learning approach for the child or for children who are struggling with dyslexia. And then why does it really matter? Like we talked again, memory and retention, because they've got to feel it, they've seen it, they've heard it. Increase engagement. The child will be likely to engage because it's fun. It's not just boring, madam just saying the usual thing every day. Imagine I'm even teaching something and I bring this into the classroom. So I made this and I probably like just did it with letter, like more like letter coding, like sound coding. So is red, A is brown, T is yellow, P is green, A is blue, and then is pink. So if I say green, brown, P, it's supposed to tell me which sounds and then what word it means. So one, this is going to engage the child's brain and it's going to help them focus on what they are doing because they now have to tell what sound is standing for what, put the sounds together, blend them to make the sound. So this is even actually going to engage and more fun than just coming to teach them that bo a t gives you bat. And then support for diverse learners. Like you said, if you have different learners in your class, if you have visual learners, they get to be sorted because they are bringing the items to class. If you have auditory learners, those who listen, they are good to go. If you have tactile learners, because they've had to do with the tracing and all that, they are good. And then you have kinesthetic because you moved out, you went out to do some jumping and some running. They are also good with that. So everybody gets their bit. That's why it's important to adopt the multisensory approach when teaching. And then, like I said, what are the key types in here? So the visual, color coded letters like this, color coded letters, and then the highlighted word part. So I'm reading with the child, probably comprehension, and then we come across a new word that we don't know. That's going to be our vocabulary for the day. So we highlight it, or then we write it down to take home as their new words. Auditory, so read aloud sessions. But what my people, let me say dyslexics, usually wouldn't want to let them read out loud because it's a lot of work for them, having to blend sounds together, read and all that. And then when you do that, they are putting them on the spot to be laughed at. But if their colleague read that same passage in 3 minutes, and probably a child with dyslexia is going to be 6 minutes, they'll be like, hurry up and let's go to the next person in the class to go. One is going to start dampening the self-esteem of that child. So it's not even going to attempt it at all again. So read aloud sessions are not for my people. And then we can use phonic songs, and then we can use sound games. Even there's a game also called the handwriting or the air writing. So I'm here and then I want to engage it, and I come in and I do, what letter am I writing? I'm supposed to look into the air, pay attention to the letter I am making, or I come, probably I hold your hand and I trace. If the child is familiar with the formation of the letter sound, they should be able to tell that what I'm writing on their body feels like or feels like b, or feels like t. And then the tactile, we talked about the sandpaper letters, finger tracing, or any other textured surface. And then for the kinesthetic, we're looking at clapping syllables, standing on certain sounds, and then oral and lips movement. So for each of the letter sounds, there's a way that your lips is moving. There's a way that your lips is moving. So is going like this. T. So for each of the letter sound, there's a way that your lips. So if you are teaching, the child has to pay attention to your lips, one, and you also have to know like what sound is making as well. And then we come to, is this clear enough? Can you read from this? You can read.
I said you can't.
How about this one?
It's
It's clear. Sorry. Number is open. No. We talked about phonological awareness, or we talked about phonological deficit and all that. Now, this is a detail of what phonological awareness is.
That's what I need you. Don't take some time. You can take some time. You can come here and then let's close it.
The foundation is. I do the because you have children from diverse backgrounds and in different schools. Maybe the schools might not be able to tell them this or teach them this, but then if they come here and then they get this foundation here right, then I mean the reading journey becomes much more easier. Now, for the phonological awareness, it is a very big umbrella. And under it, we have word awareness, we have rhyming, we have alliteration, we have syllables, onset and rhyme, and then we have phonemic awareness. And this is where a lot of the activity is going on or is taking place. Now, for word awareness, we are looking at the word level. If it's just literally having a sentence like so. If we have simply the boy is going to school, word awareness is just saying how many words do we have in this sentence. So we are counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's basically what the word awareness is telling us in here. And then when we go to rhyming, I'll simply write but, can, rat, pen, sat. I can ask them, does bat rhyme with can? Does can rhyme with pen? Does bat rhyme with rat? Or does sat rhyme with rat? Now these are rhymes. So these ones can go into one category. But we are going to compare the rhyming words with the non-rhyming words for them to tell us that, okay, so I can even ask, what word rhymes with can? What word rhymes with pen? What word rhymes with pot? Then the child here is supposed to think in that family word because they're going to be looking at the 5 vowels, which is a, e, o, and a. These are the ones that I'm going to be using in the middle for our CVC because here we'll be just be swapping the consonants. In here, we'll just be swapping the consonant, but this is where we are going to be changing the sounds to be given different words with different meanings. To be given different words and different meanings. So if you are looking at the rhyming, it's basically looking at words and then asking them to give you words that rhyme with the one that we have. Or what family words do we have in the same category. And then we are looking at alliteration. So for alliteration, it's just having words starting with the same beginning sound. So for that, let me use me. So Beya has a hoodie. Alliteration because each is starting with the same beginning sound. So you can say Humphrey has a horse. That's alliteration. David does the dust or something. That's alliteration because the beginning sounds forming a sentence with the same beginning sounds for them to understand. That's what the alliteration down here means. And then for the syllables, like I said, we have a word. We're like na, kin. Now this is actually So we have elephant, we have we have le, and we have font. So in the word like elephant, we have three syllables because it can be broken into three different parts for them to put together. So that's what syllables gives us. And then we have onset and rhyme. For onset and rhyme, we are working with something like the onset is I'm working with three letter sound because if you are teaching them to read, the first sound I work with the CVC words, and they are the consonant, vowel, consonant words. Why? Because we are teaching the reading. Those are the words simply that goes with the phonic rules. So here we have from vowel A, we have bat, rat, man, fan. Okay. And when we have we have bed, we have red, we have men, we have 10. For vowel A, we have sip, we have dip, we have rip, we have tip. For O, we have pot, we have rod, we have pot, and we have not thought. Okay, so A, E, O, and then we have A. So we have run, we have bun, we have sun. No, now we are teaching, these are the beginning words for teaching a child to read simply because they are all words that follow the phonic rules. They are going with the sounds mainly. So bo, a, t, bat, a, t, rat, s, a, p, si, d, a, p, dip. So this is how you start. When this CVC words sit in, then I have a slide that has the phonic rules, how to take them step by step. So that's why I'm using examples with the CVC a lot. So I'm talking about the onset rhyme. So for the onset rhyme, something like, let's say the A family word. Okay, so we have ka, we have ma, we have na, we have sa, right? Now, these are the onsets, the first sound, and these are the rhymes, the a, a. Does it make sense? So the first sound is what we call the onset, and then the rhyme is what that ending equal sounds. So that's why for this one we call them the onset rhyme. Because you look, so when we go to verbally add words in a, we have red, we have bed, we have med, we have ted. These are onsets because they're the beginning sounds. So for in here we have beginning sounds, we have middle sounds, and we have the end sound. So if I'm working with a child and I'll tell them, okay, I change the middle sound and I put in a. Now what word do we have? I've changed the whole meaning of the word because I changed the middle sound. Same way if I told them I'm changing my beginning sound and I'm putting oh, my beginning sound has changed. That's how we are manipulating. That's why it's phonological. We are manipulating the individual sounds in the word. It could be the beginning sound, it could be the middle sound, it could be the end sound. It could be that I'm actually deleting. So when I take out pit, what do we have left? 8. When I take out what do we have? An. When I take out what do we have left? Ed. Now these are the core foundation skills that is going to help them build their literacy skills. Because when this sits, all the other rules, like I said, is systematic. They are going to be built on the foundation of this. So that's what onset rhyme is. And then to the main issue, the phonemic awareness. That's basically what we have been doing all here. Because in here we have isolation. So if I have I have sat. Isolation. Ah, so I've isolated the individual sounds in the word. So if I have a child and I want to assess the child or test their level, I begin with CBC. I isolate. I have RIP, A, O, RIP. I've isolated the individual sounds. Now you tell me the individual sounds. They're supposed to blend them together. Now we are having S, A, T. And then in here, if you can, try as much as possible to let them have their pencils so that they can dot in the individual sounds. So S, A, T. Now, if you want to make it fun, you can have a small car, okay? One of those toy cars. And then you put it at the beginning sound. So they're going to be traveling. So S, don't let them leave in any of the sounds. So you have S, A, T, sat. Does it make a lot of sense? So in here again, my attention is drawn to the fact there are some sounds we call the continuous sounds, and then we have that we call the stop sounds. Now, continuous sounds usually we use them at the beginning because they are able to drag them. If I put po, a, to, I can't drag po. Po is just po. But if I put I can drag so ah fan. So stop sounds like bo. I wish I could make the list for you so that you have it.